The Remembering Them podcast is a platform for people to share stories and memories of their loved ones who have passed away. The podcast was created in memory of Dad, Bob Cecil. May he rest in peace. Your hosts, Mark Cecil and Ryan Thwaites, acknowledge the rich history and importance of storytelling within Indigenous culture.
My name is Jorgi Skeen, and I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we meet here today. Today we're meeting in Meanjin, and those traditional owners are the Yagara and Turrbal people, and I'd also like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge my people, the Gubbi Gubbi people, and extend that acknowledgement to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people listening in today.
Hello, Luke. Welcome back to the podcast.
Morning, Mark. How are you?
Good. Just you and I today. Ryan is off playing baseball. So this is,
Playing
I guess,
baseball.
playing baseball. I don't know what he's doing actually on a Sunday, a bit sketchy and raining everywhere, but he can't be here, whatever the actual reason is. And I guess this is the beauty of what we talked about, having three of us. Hopefully, one of you two are able to jump on with me, and if not, worst case scenario, I can do it myself. So we'll jump straight into the clues. And the good news with having Ryan not here is we shouldn't get any ridiculous guesses. Three clues for you as always to try and guess where we're from. Play along at home as our wonderful listeners normally do. Clue number one. This place is home to the oldest known wooden structure in the country. It was built in 1827 and was once a fur trading post.
Fur's big in North America, right?
Is it?
Kentucky.
Kentucky. Not Kentucky. Not a bad guess. Clue number two for you. Mushroom capital of the country. This place is known for its wild mushrooms. The area has a thriving mushroom industry, producing a variety of edible fungi, including chanterelles, morels, and porcini mushrooms.
Man, love me some mushrooms. Are we talking about the happy mushrooms or the ones you just...
I think genuine
You just
cooking
eat.
ones.
Yeah, okay, yeah, genuine, yeah, fake mushrooms.
Yeah.
Oh man, I have no idea.
Tough clues, very tough clues.
California.
Not California. This third one might narrow it down for you. The Great Bear Rainforest is one of the largest temperate rainforests in the world, home to rare white Kermode bears, also known as spirit bears. These bears are a genetic variant of the black bear and have a unique white coat.
Okay, yeah. We're north. Surely we're north.
We are north.
Are we looking for a town or a city?
We're looking for a region, let's say.
Are we in Alaska?
No, we're not in Alaska. Good
Why
guess,
not in
though.
Alaska? Damn.
We are in British
Canada.
Columbia, in Canada. Yes, we
Okay.
are. Yes.
Okay.
So clue number one, hopefully you got that at home. Or I'm sure if you're up that way, you may have had a few of those clues would have spoken to you. Clue number one, home to the oldest known wooden structure in Canada, built in 1827. Fur trading post of the Hudson Bay Company. I didn't give you that name just in case that gave it away. Mushrooms, particularly around the Fraser Valley. And so British Columbia is where we are today. Our guest is from Prince George specifically. I don't know if you've heard of that particular city. It's often referred to as the northern capital of the province due to its position as a regional hub for commerce, transportation and services. Known for its proximity to vast wilderness areas, the city is a gateway for outdoor activities like fishing, hiking and skiing, offering a mix of urban amenities and access to nature. It's about a 1.5 hour flight north of Vancouver.
Vancouver, yeah. I just looked it up now. It's literally in the middle of BC.
Yeah, I guess why it's referred to as the hub. So it is we're having an OG recording today. So our guests, where we actually started this podcast, interviewing guests and telling their stories. So our guest today is from Prince George, British Columbia. He's a bridge engineer for the Canadian government. His wife is a forester, and they have three kids, two out of school and working, trying to figure stuff out. The youngest is in grade 12. He's also a writer and podcaster himself. He loves cooking, hoping to work that into his retirement someday, and on and off amateur boxer and MMA. Not many people know that he got to fight in Las Vegas. I was going to say got into a fight in Las Vegas. That wouldn't be too unusual. At a charity boxing event, and not many people also know that he has a pretty bad stutter as a child/teen. Our guest from Prince George in British Columbia is Topper Sundquist. Welcome to the Remembering Them podcast officially, Topper. Thank you very much for joining us all the way over from British Columbia in Canada.
Yes, way up north in Prince George.
Yes, I have not been to that region. I've been to the other side. I don't know, Luke, have you been to BC?
No, the closest I've been, well, most niche place I've been was Port Hardy, if you know that, Topper.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that's over on the coast.
Yeah, so over on the island. So I was up there, but I think I went up to Squamish and then just across to the usuals, Banff and Whistler, things like that.
All the
Yeah.
more exciting things in the mountains.
What
I don't
about
know,
from
looks
where?
pretty, looks
Yeah,
cool
where
up
you live,
there.
Topper? What's something that if people are coming to you to visit, what's something in the area that they should definitely check out where you live?
Uh, that's actually a hard question because it's actually really kind of boring around here. We have a lot of ski hills. We have about 10,000 lakes you can go camping at. So
That's
if you like lakes and you like skiing, we got stuff for the summer and the winter.
that's not
How
so
how
boring.
cold would it, in the middle of winter, what are we talking here? How cold typically?
Uh, I mean, we probably average like -10 or so, but we get a couple of weeks at -30, -40 when
Damn,
the Arctic winds change direction there.
damn. So all the lakes frozen over.
Oh boy, yeah.
Yeah. Damn, that's
Well,
cold.
completely hot at the moment over here. It's opposite extreme heat over here at the moment, so cannot sympathise with you there. And that's, I guess, a metric of living over the other side of the world. Topper, thank you again very much for joining us on the podcast and speaking to today about. Well, if you'd like to jump in and tell us who we're talking about today, their relationship to you, and a little bit about what happened to them.
All right. I wanted to talk about my friend Tyler, who was when I was 9 or 10, I moved from Vancouver, the big city, up to Kamloops, a small town inland, because my dad changed jobs. And Tyler was, for the first couple of months, my first bully in the new town. And then at some point after that, he became my first friend in the new town. And we're not entirely sure what happened there. So we've known each other, 30, 35 years. Went to high school together, kind of went to college together. We both moved all over the place. He would work up north in the oil patch, or he'd work out in the prairies. I had kids young, so I was working in offices. But we always found time to meet up. My kids, like he was my kids' Uncle Tyler, their whole life growing up. And yeah, I mean, he was just basically my oldest friend.
And what happened to Tyler that took him away from us?
That is a bit of a longer story. Um, like I said, we didn't hang out much in our 20s just because we were in different cities. But he would come to visit, and more when he came to visit, he spent a lot more time drinking. And he never acted, well, he never said he was an alcoholic. Nobody ever said he was an alcoholic, but it was pretty clear that he was. But he was still the same person. He was still outgoing. He was friendly. He was social. He was like he comes alive around other people. He's the most helpful, friendly, uplifting person there is. And he also drank a tremendous amount. And for the last 7 or 8 years, he was working and living at a recovery house in North Vancouver. So he that's where he went to get sober for the third and final time. Well, not quite final time for for the third time, and he ended up staying there and working there and being one of the people in charge. He was Mr. Fix-It. He was a handyman. He would repair everything. He built furniture and gazebos and fixed people's cars for free. And he had a great life. And we hung out a lot more after that when I was down there visiting. And I only found out this last part from his mom after he passed away. But uh, he broke up with his girlfriend and fell off the wagon a little bit and flipped his truck in downtown Vancouver. And in true Tyler fashion, walked away without a scratch, despite being completely drunk, speeding and flipping his truck and totaling it, having his license taken away forever. But either from the car accident or just from years of alcohol abuse, that was when they started to find some issues with his heart. And he never mentioned any of this. And then one day, a few months after that, I just get a call from his mom, and he passed away in his sleep from a heart attack.
And fairly young and fairly recent too, wasn't it, Topper?
That was 2 years ago, so we were both 42.
Yeah. And outside of the handyman, do anything for anyone type of guy, how would you describe Tyler as a person?
He was just incredibly uplifting and motivational. He wanted people around him to be happier, and if there was anything he could do to help them be happy, he would do it. Like he dropped everything and helped us move several times when I had to move for work. And sometimes he would live in a different province and he would leave and come and help me move house.
They're the type of people you want in your life. I'm about to do a move in a couple of months, and yeah, I'll be pressing on some good friends to help out. It's not a fun job, as you would know.
I'm busy,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Point in case.
I can't make it. No.
If you happen to be over here, more than welcome. Topper, is there a phrase or quote or saying that you associate with Tyler?
A phrase or a quote. I mean, not specifically a phrase or a quote. I think most of what I would associate with him would be song lyrics and music. And that was a lot of what we bonded over growing up was fantasy books and music. And he was the one who introduced me to a lot of music in my life. Like we'd be out hanging out, and I would drop him off back at his place, and he'd like say, uh, "I have a new song you have to listen to, so come on in, and we'll just listen to one or two songs, and we'll burn through like 10 or 15 new songs." And I'm sharing stuff with him, he's sharing stuff with me.
What were some of his favorites, if you had to pick either bands or songs or?
It was definitely the heavier stuff. So your Pantera, Metallica, Kitty, Clutch, Psycho Stick. We both finally got to see Clutch for the first time together at the Commodore Ballroom in Vancouver sometime in the early 2000s. And I think that was the first time that I also realized he might have a drinking problem because after the show, I left him propped up against the wall because I was like, okay, I'm going to go find one of our other friends. And he's like, okay, no problem. I'm good. I come back 2 minutes later and there's people around him like holding towels to his face to stop the bleeding because he just passed out on the sidewalk. And he was like, oh no, I'm fine. Everything's okay.
Damn.
And it's like, I think you've had a few too many drinks. Let's get you home.
Sounds like the life of the party, though, to be fair. Fun guy to hang
Yeah,
around
absolutely.
with,
He absolutely was a life of the party. And I mean, if he was around me, he was always life of the party. He was always upbeat. He was always positive. And again, it wasn't until afterwards when I talked to his girlfriend and I talked to his mom that I realized he was having these long stretches of being down and not being the life of the party and just, not talking to anybody for days at a time.
Yeah.
And
Would
I
you say,
never
do you think it was
noticed that.
the drinking, Topper, that, or was it an underlying condition? Was it that caused the stress on the heart? Has that been investigated or looked at?
The heart condition, I don't know if they looked into it too closely. I'm not sure it mattered so much in the end. Like there
Sure.
was every chance that it was from the the car accident. It was every chance it was from the drinking, but in the end, the drinking led him to the car crash, and that led him to a bit of a spiral for the last few months.
I mean, it might be a bit of an obvious one around the drinking, but are there any particular lessons that you learned from Tyler and his time on Earth?
Uh, there's always time to learn new things. Up here, well, not up here in Prince George, down in Kamloops, he was in charge of the makerspace for a couple of years, and he that's where he learned electronics, and he applied that to all sorts of things. He was learning uh, when we were teens, he tried to create a pirate radio station and build an FM broadcaster from scratch. So that was the kind of person he was. Like if he really liked his hyper focuses and he was like, I'm going to learn this in the next 2 months, and he would somehow. Like he was not easily distracted. He was very intense. He was very focused. He was very likely somewhere on the manic depressive scale. And most of my memories of him are from the manic phases.
You have a favorite one, Topper? Favorite memory of Tyler?
Favorite memory. We went camping so many times. Like we were in scouts together. Uh, Scouts and ventures. Favorite memory might be when I was a kid, like maybe 13. My family went out east for a family reunion, and it was entire branches of the family I'd never met. And my parents realized I was going to be completely miserable on this 5 day trip, 3 day family reunion, 5 day trip back. So they were like, why don't you bring a friend? So I brought Tyler, and he brought a sack of 30 or 40 books, and we just laid in the back of the van. Like we laid all the seats down flat. We're driving on the highway. You could do this in the 90s. Just laid all the seats down flat, and we just read books and talked the entire time. And like we would be in a new hotel every night. We would see all the sights. I got some pictures from my dad when I was down in Vancouver for Tyler's memorial of us that I completely don't remember, of us in the Parliament buildings in Ottawa, and we're sitting on the cannons from the 1800s, and we're basically standing on these castle parapets. And I don't remember that one bit, but it's absolutely me and him wandering around a castle being hooligans.
This is
With
obviously before, oh, sorry, after he bullied you, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That
I
was
was
after
gonna,
we
he wasn't
that was
bullying you in the
after
van
we
as you drove across the country.
that was after we somehow became best friends, just because I think we both realized like the other person, we were both kind of weirdos and outsiders. We both read entirely too much. We both talked entirely too much. We both had way too much imagination, and we just kind of glommed onto each other. And I was the introvert and he was the party animal, and we somehow still hung out
just the
and
balance,
got along.
yin and yang
Yeah.
balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's some great memories. If you, Tom, if you had some advice for people that have, gone through the loss of a lifelong friend like you had, is there anything that you would um, like to pass on, I guess, for someone that is, I guess, post him passing away, but even before, where you mentioned there may or may not have been some signs around times where he'd be depressed and pull away and all the rest of it. Is there any advice you could give to people on both sides of them, close friends passing away?
I think for both sides, like both for me and for him, is reaching out to people, because I went through, like, we talked mostly online just because we lived in different cities, and going through like our chat history for the previous couple of years, he never mentioned hardly anything that was up. And I was looking at the dates while talking with his mom, and she's like, no, here's where he was kicked out of the halfway house. Here's where he broke up with his girlfriend. I'm like, and our chat history is just me and him talking about music. And I had no idea any of this was happening. And I also could have reached out to him more, because I didn't. I suppose I always figured he would always be around. Like, I'll talk to him next time I'm down in Vancouver. I'll talk to him next time he's passing through here. And I hadn't talked to him for a couple of weeks when I got the call from his mom that he'd passed away. So on both sides, reach out. Reach out if you're having troubles. People you've known your whole life, people you've known more than 30 years, want to hear it and they do want to help.
Good advice. Really, really
Even
good advice.
even if we can just listen.
Yeah. Top of that, taking you back to that phone call from Tyler's mum, I mean, goes without saying it would have been a shock and a surprise. How did that situation play out? How did that discussion play out?
Not great. I had just started a new job and I got a message from her on Facebook that just said, call me, which was one of the few messages I've ever gotten from her
Yeah,
online, just because I
that's
don't
not
talk
not a good
to
message
talk
to
to her
get.
so
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
And I immediately had this horrible sinking feeling. I assumed like something had happened and he was in the hospital because, like I said, in typical Tyler fashion, he can walk away from any accident. I've thought of two more where he like probably should have died and he just gets up and walks away. He's completely unscathed. And no, she just told me straight up that Tyler passed away during the night.
How have you
And
coped since then, Topper? Yourself. You mentioned before about reaching out and talking to people. Has that been key to you, or are there other things you've found yourself doing that has helped post Tyler passing away?
uh I don't know. Like I said, I'm the quiet
Listening to
one, so
podcasts, maybe?
oh, boy, howdy, listening to podcasts, listening to a lot of music. I put together a music compilation for his mom, and I was just listing songs, and by the end of it, I had gone back and I'd written like a couple of hundred words for each song, and I'd written like a 20-page email to her about all these songs and sort of what they meant to Tyler and what they meant to me and where we were when we heard them the first time. And talking with my dad, uh, I mean, my dad at the time was dealing with sort of the end stages of Parkinson's, so he had uh, some problems remembering like what happened that day. But he remembered e- everything from the 80s and 90s, like me and Tyler growing up. He remembered a dozen stories that I had completely forgotten. So talking with him, talking with Tyler's mom, we've gone for dinner with her a few times. With all my kids and just swapping stories and laughing and crying.
It's,
A bunch of our a bunch of our old friends kind of came out of the woodwork on social media and said hi to me and reached out, but then they didn't. After that, they sort of reached out when there was all the online organizing because his memorial was live streamed online for people who couldn't make it, and a bunch of people reached out and said hi, and no one reached out and said hi after that.
yeah.
And I should follow my own advice more and reach out to them because it's people we grew up with.
We've had that discussion a couple of times where I guess at the peak, after them passing, the height of it all, you get a lot of messages, a lot of love and support, and then it's slowly dies away and eventually peters out and stops. And you mentioned
Hmm.
talking to your dad and also Tyler's mum, and without leading the witness, is that how you keep Tyler's memory legacy living on and memories of him by talking to those people that have memories of him themselves?
The Remembering Them podcast is supported by My Legacy Message. How do you want to be remembered? My Legacy Message provides a service that delivers a keepsake video to your loved ones, often as a surprise, after you pass. My Legacy Message. Be remembered.
Yeah, I talk with them and we rehash the good times, remember the good times, and I tell a lot of his stories to my kids who miss their Uncle Tyler. When he was in charge of the makerspace in Kamloops, he showed them how to use the laser cutter. He showed them how to use all the soldering irons, and then showed them a science book from the 1960s that was basically how to make a death ray for kids. So anytime we talked about Uncle Tyler, he was like, "Are we going to make the death ray soon?" So they're always down for more stories of Uncle Tyler and just sharing a bunch of those
That's
Do they
awesome.
and
share
doing
the
stuff like this.
do they share the love of music that you and Tyler had?
Oh yeah.
Pantera, Metallica.
uh uh his mom sent a bunch of his heavy metal shirts to me, but he was like a much skinnier person than me. So now my son wears those to metal
Awesome.
shows.
Awesome.
There you go. Perfect.
His metal shirts from 20, 30 years ago. They're still making the rounds.
Yeah, that's great.
That's almost in fashion nowadays. Retro shirts
Yep.
are in fashion these days, so they'll be rocking it. They'll be looking good.
Yeah.
Topper, one final question for you for the main part of the podcast. Traditionally, our most difficult question. If Tyler was in front of you today, what would you say to him?
Uh when I get asked things like that, my brain comes up with 100 answers and then just kind of doesn't know which one to pick. I'm not sure what I would ask him to say. I would just want him to start talking. I would want him to tell me what's going on with him, what's going on with his life. Like there was a lot of stuff he was keeping to himself. We never talked, me and him, directly about his drinking. It was always just kind of skirting the outsides. And especially when it seemed like he was doing so good working at the recovery house, part of me thought, well, thank God that part of his life is behind him. And we continued not to talk about it. And I would have asked him about what was wrong. I would have wanted him to open up.
Makes sense. And we love having male guests on. We love having all guests on, but particularly someone like yourself that is not afraid to jump on and talk about what they've been through and be a little bit vulnerable, because it really, I guess, shows to other males that we should be asking each other those pretty, they can seem like tough questions, but I think once you break through that ice, it's not so difficult. So it's really, I think that makes sense, is what I'm trying to say, that you just ask him how's it going and what's going on. So it completely makes sense, that question. Even though you've got 99 other ones floating around, I think that one would hit home strongly. So Topper, thank
Yeah.
you very much for joining us and sharing stories of Tyler. Really awesome to hear that his love of heavy metal, or your love of heavy metal as well, lives on through your son. And I'm glad to hear, we're glad to hear that you're still remembering him with his family as well. And again, just appreciate you coming on and joining us and keeping his memory alive.
Thank you.
So, Luke, that was Topper from British Columbia, Prince George specifically, British Columbia in Canada.
Oh yeah, bud. Topper.
Yeah.
I love the name Topper.
Yeah, we have. I forgot to ask him in the Patreon about that, but I haven't met a Topper. If we're saying it like the Canadians and Americans would, it'd be Topper. But Topper for the Aussies that are listening. Really cool chat about Tyler. Obviously sad to hear that he passed away quite early, had his battles with alcohol. But yeah, really, really sad to hear, but glad to hear at the same time that his memories are living on with Topper and conversations that he's having with mum, with Tyler's mum and his dad and his kids as well.
I guess it's nice for Topper you could take a little bit of solace in knowing that it was somewhat peaceful.
In his
At
sleep,
least,
yeah,
in
absolutely.
your sleep.
Yeah.
Like you hear a lot of people say, I want to go like this. So
yeah,
at least that's something to look a bit of positivity.
Yeah, at least it wasn't in that when he flipped his car and all those other events, which, by the way, leads us nicely into our Patreon. So we had a really good chat to Topper afterwards. So if you're not a member of our Patreon, worthwhile. I think it's $6 US, I believe. It's been a while since we've plugged it, per month. Opportunity to support the podcast, but also listen to those snippets from people like Topper that jump on and stick around. We hear about the couple of other situations where Tyler evaded death, and also we talk about Topper's other interests, as well as his podcast, which I promised that I would give a plug to on our main podcast for those that aren't Patreon members. So, Luke, the name of the podcast was
Hustlers.
Hustlers. So it's a book review podcast, weekly, I believe, but worth checking out. It's the only Hustler
It's the niche space.
Only podcast. So search it up and give that a listen.
Giving the people what they want.
Exactly, yeah. But we really appreciate Topper coming on. We said this in the Patreon to him as well, that we don't often get a lot of males coming on the podcast talking about feelings and all those kinds of things. So it was really nice, Topper jumping on and being vulnerable and sharing stories and memories of Tyler. Reminder to our listeners to jump on all of our socials, give those a follow, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, we're all on all of those. Follow us on there. My legacy message, which you would have heard the ad halfway through this, jump on and support that as part of the podcast as well, where you can leave video messages to your loved ones, family, or friends, which again, I'm sure that if Topper had a video message from Tyler that he could play to himself, listen back, and also his kids of Uncle Tyler, I'm sure he would have loved that too. So opportunity there to record a message, jump on and support that, mylegacymessage.com.au. Thank you very much, Luke, for joining me. We'll be back. Hopefully everyone's enjoying the other styles of episodes as well, the shorter ones, but we've been love these ones too, the OG episodes with our guests.
Got to pay homage. Got to pay homage. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
We've got to respect. Thank you very much for jumping on and covering for Ryan. Did well, did more than well. We don't know if maybe give us a few reviews, and does anyone actually miss him? Does anyone even... Actually, that's a good point. I did miss that, and you've picked up on something that Ryan wouldn't have picked up on. Rate and review the podcast, please. Jump on, rate and review the podcast. It helps us to show up for people searching for grief-related podcasts. Like and share the podcast, this episode with Topper as well, and any other episodes that you've liked. So maybe you've just jumped up in the co-hosting ranks there. But either way,
it really doesn't take much.
Looking forward to speaking to you and or Ryan in the next episode. Thanks very much for joining us.
Ryan.
Love you, Meeves. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Mark. See you, mate.
The Remembering Them podcast is created for entertainment purposes. Mark and Ryan are not licensed mental health professionals. If you would like to discuss your mental well-being, several free resources are available in Australia. Information about these services is available in the podcast notes. Please take the time to contact a loved one today and tell them how much you appreciate and love them.